everybody to see. Sometimes we are talking and people don't understand what does it mean by this event is not vendor driven, because people are from the industry. This event is not crowded, because we in the past, before COVID, we never made an event more than 90 people maximum, because we want to bring senior level people together for networking. Here 240 people registered, but all the time you have the numbers 90, 180, 50, 40, 90, but it doesn't matter these numbers. It's important that people raise their own question. We give them the microphone and they can ask questions. Beside the speakers who have been working so hard really for this, I have to thank the sponsored partners. If they were not supporting us, we wouldn't be able to run this event. Data Robot, thanks a lot. Tiger Graph, WhereScape, and Dinoda. They have been chosen as well by purpose, reading them, seeing what they are doing, and how much of a value they are going to bring to this event. Thanks a lot. Ramesh, I don't want to take the time. Go ahead.
Thank you, Musin. Can everybody hear me okay, by the way?
Yes.
Yeah, very good. Okay, so good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining today's panel discussion. I'm going to be your host for the next stage of this, the panel discussion, where we're going to be following on from Kristiina's presentation from just now, talking about building an instant implementation of the data and analytics strategy. We thought it would be a very relevant topic after the presentation we've just seen from Kristiina, yeah, so I'm looking forward to fielding some questions with our fellow panelists here, Kristiina, Sami, and Nina. Before we get into the panel discussion today, there are just a few housekeeping items I want to run through. First of all, if you want to submit any questions to the panelists, please do so in the chat session. I have it open on a separate screen here. I'll keep an eye on it and just make sure that if we're able to, I will do my best to make sure that these questions get addressed. We do have some questions already for the panel that we will be discussing. So moving on from there, I think let's get the introductions out of the way. So I'll let the panelists introduce themselves. I think you've already met Kristiina, so let's move on to Nina and Sami. Nina, if you want to.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone from my side as well. Nice to be here. My name is Nina Marila, and I'm from Finnair. Finnair is the 5th oldest airline in the world at the moment. And in the Finnair, I'm heading the data science topics. So basically all AI, advanced analytics and data science, machine learning, whatever you want to call it, they are on my desk. Nice to be here.
Very good. And Sami, if you would introduce.
Yeah. So my name is Sami Ahma-Aho. I work as a digital lead in data science and AI at Neste. So a renewable energy company here in Finland. A bit of a data science perspective to things as well, but one of the things that I'm working on is data and analytics strategy as well here at Neste. So that wide topic is very dear to me as well.
Okay, very good. And I'll round off. My name is Ramesh Panakkal. I work for WhereScape. I'm their enterprise customer success manager for EMEA. And I tend to look after our large blue chip, really complex environments. And I also have a background in risk analytics. So it's nice to be back here for this subject matter. So let's just jump into the first question today. Sami, I think I'm going to ask you to lead this question. How do you ensure DNA contributes to the overall vision of the organization and extracts value?
Yeah, thank you. I think the question here is very fundamental one, because I do think that kind of, at least it is my viewpoint, that the data strategy is kind of the essential part. But when you kind of look at the data strategies, at least a few years back, they deal a whole lot with kind of the what perspective of how to do things. So it's about architecture, it's about data ecosystems and things like that. But surprise, surprise, you might be missing kind of the vision part and the objective part. And I think that is one of the kind of the critical things. And I do believe that you should have or this is at least the closest that I've gotten personally to the ideal situation, that you should have a kind of a process where you actually map out your data to a process that refines the data, whether it's data science or whether it's self-service BI, doesn't really matter how you refine it, but anyways, and you map it all the way out to your strategic priorities and your goals. And I think that that kind of a process, if you have that in place, you have a lot of, in terms of aligning your things to your goals.
Very good. And Kristiina, would you like to also just respond?
Yeah, maybe I can add one thing I didn't that much cover in the earlier presentation. Selecting the right cases and projects around data and analytics that actually have potential to create value. I think that's also a very interesting and critical part, and it's not always very easy to kind of set the selection criteria and also communicate that to the organization that okay, your project or idea is actually something that we want to focus on, and the other one is not. And many times it's also a big discussion and also disagreement sometimes that which cases should we take and which not, because we cannot, as you all know, we cannot do everything at the same time.
Yeah, so prioritization and being able to manage the expectations around those priorities is very, very key to this in that case.
Yeah.
So Nina, what is your experience with this question?
Well, I say that I hear both Sami and Kristiina here very good points. Very often in the data strategy, we are talking about, for example, data platforms and technology, but then not talking about what does it enable. The strategy is not to set up the data platform, it's to enable actually the company strategy. So just to remember, link back everything to the company strategy, like Sami said, and then about the communications. So explain people who gets the value, that this value comes from the data and analytics, not from the air, and there are no magical elves who are actually doing it. Instead, it's kind of, we know how to do this, let us do our work, but the value comes when you come there and play part of the whole thing. So I think that's the key.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, driving value is very important, ensuring that you have buy-in from your stakeholders, and they're also understanding the benefit of supporting your initiative.
Yes, exactly.
For sure. And that actually leads quite nicely into the second question, which is how do you take the first steps towards digital culture? Is it tech first or culture first? So, I think you're going to ask the answer for answering first.
Yeah, you can just guess. Of course, it's not the tech first. It's the persons and it's people first and culture first. And as I said already earlier, being done this 2 times now, I think it's one of the biggest challenges is to get people to the same level to understand what we are talking about. And this is why I have built this, for example, training program. Now I started a little bit over half a year ago in this role, and we built our first training program November, and we already have more than 1,000 employees taken it. So it has to be very straightforward and easy communication, and kind of bring all the people into the same level that we all understand what are we talking about when we talk about data or analytics. But it takes time. It's a huge effort, but absolutely people first.
Yes, very good. And Nina?
Yeah, I agree with Kristiina that it's people first, but sometimes with the tech you can actually take some bigger steps quicker if you find some good people from your organization with good influence who understand a little bit more of this area. So we call it ice cream cone method. So give them some very cool, awesome technology that brings a lot of value to them. then they are like the children in the playground going around with the ice cream cone, and then everyone is like, what is that? Where did you get that? I want to have the same thing that that guy has. So then you actually, people want to talk with you about these things, and they want to learn instead of you push the learnings to that direction. So it's the both, but the people first.
Absolutely. Good. So it's that balance for you from your point of view. You know, technology is the carrot, and the culture is the bedrock.
Yes.
Very good. So Sami.
Yeah. If somebody would put a gun to my head and be cruel to select between the two, I would obviously go with the people. Kind of, it's a obvious choice, and I think people are about interactions, and what I've at least noted in the previous past year, as I'm sure all of us have, that the interactions are different to kind of foster in this environment where we are not necessarily at all physically present at any time between each other, and that kind of interaction to foster a culture then for towards digitalization and taking into use new ways to work and new ways to work with new technology. I think that might be kind of one of the keys there. But I do feel that also Nina presented a good point in about the kind of finding the people and finding the parts of the organization that can actually leverage technology and already take it into use. So those people that have kind of the mentality also already to foster forward the kind of the change in this.
And that actually raises the next question quite nicely. I mean, where you have an organization which is you know, you have different skills and maturity and awareness within that organization. You know, lots of different people know lots of different things about, and some people don't necessarily have the same awareness around the AI space or the data analytics space as we would like. How do we foster that understanding, and how do we reveal the possibilities of AI to those business users who aren't necessarily able to understand the capabilities that are available to them and don't have the experience to understand it? I mean, how do we expose this world so that we gain traction and gain excitement? So Nina, if you want to lead.
Yeah, it's all about understanding the problems. Why do they need this thing that you are able to deliver? I have a good example. One manager in Finnair contacted me that, Nina, we need your team. We want to have some KPIs defined. Mm-hmm. And I was like, yes, sounds important. Let's sit together, have coffees. Let's discuss what you want to do with the KPIs. And the KPI was the thing that she thought that we are doing. So that's why she asked KPIs, since she thought that that's our like key thing to do. So when I actually understood what she is after, it's not the KPIs, instead of understanding the customer behavior and then impact on that customer behavior. So we are utilizing very often design thinking methods. So start from the problem and then solve that problem, instead of do whatever is asked from you, since usually it's not the correct way to solve the actual problem they had behind. And sometimes it takes a long time to actually reveal the actual problem. There are a lot of discussions in the higher level that, like, I see what you are needing, but I don't understand why. And the design thinking is one of the good set of methodologies to actually dig deeper. What is the core thing we want to fix now? It also solves quite nicely all the prioritization problems, since you cannot do everything at once. So we have very much liked both our data and analytics people, but then our stakeholders as well, when we utilize design thinking methods when doing cooperation.
So that way you're avoiding you're exposing the opportunities, and you're avoiding this potential black box type of an approach which doesn't gain traction with business users because they don't necessarily trust it, they don't understand it, and so you can educate as you go.
Yes, and then it's also motivating the people who are doing the solution when they actually see that, oh, there is actual value from this one. I don't just do something for something, but I know that I'm helping this part of the business, and they can, for example, save millions with this, or that we can have an impact to the customer satisfaction, and the impact is big, and I'm there to actually deliver. And then it's same way the education, then that what is needed to build that kind of system to our stakeholders, so then they don't come after 1 week like, why it's not there yet?
Yeah.
Well, we are building it, and now you know what is your role there? We need you. We cannot deliver the value. You are delivering the value. So you need to prepare the process, what is then utilizing the AI. We can only develop things to the shelf, but the stakeholders and the business needs to utilize them, and only then the value is there.
Right. And I guess, you know, as you go through this process as well, you're also encouraging further discovery and further innovation. So you're sparking new thoughts and new ideas with the stakeholders.
Exactly, and it's taking also our culture then forward. People start to think differently also in our business side, what could be the solution, and like how to contact us, what you want to do with us. So it helps in so many ways.
Very good, very good. And Sami, what's your experience here? So
yeah, I think Kristiina had a tremendous point in the data strategy part about the culture training, about the trainings, and I think this relates back to that in the larger picture. So if you're trying to govern, somehow not govern but manage the process of how people learn new things and how people learn to have a new viewpoint on things and understand, for example, AI better, I think that is obviously the overarching thing, that the trainings that should include this. But then I think the kind of the $1,000 question is that what is the limit of the trainings that you can achieve with what is the benefit, what is the understanding that one can achieve with the training? So do you present, for example, that okay, we have predictive maintenance models and this is generally how they work, so that business people kind of get a understanding of that. But at least from personal experience, we've done those types of sessions a few times and they do work, but I always seem to notice that then you have still a lot of legwork to do after that.
Yeah.
And that is kind of that people know the general theme and general topics, but then when you start to actually implement, you need a whole lot of legwork from your data professional team and your data professionals overall at your in your organization to communicate with the business side. And like Nina said, that's a fantastic point. I think that it isn't necessarily that we just introduce a new model or a new technological gimmick or thing. It might mean that you need to change your processes as well. It's an interaction. And that kind of journey is, I think that is the key there as well, to learn the journey, learn how it actually changes, not necessarily the technology or the application of it.
Yeah. So you're building a partnership as you go, right? I mean, that's the idea.
Yeah.
You evolve symbiotically with your stakeholders and their needs, as well as you know, being able to express to them, you know, how they can help you help them. But also, I have a question around, you know, when you're doing your training and when you're exposing this subject matter to business users who aren't necessarily going to be as savvy around the processes and the specifics, do you find that there is a certain level of complexity that is just too much for them? How do you pitch it? How do you gauge where that boundary is?
Yeah, that's a tremendously good question. I just have these horrible pictures or these flashbacks about people also almost kind of falling asleep when they are hearing about AI and machine learning models, and that can certainly happen. And that's one of the points where you have to look in the mirror, that what is kind of your expectation the different types of themes and topics. And I think that's kind of the limitation where I hinted on earlier, that there is only so much that you can do with the overall trainings, and then there is kind of, you just need to recognize the limit and try to then take the actions in the other kind of practical project work and practical applications and so forth.
Yeah. And I think having that, do you come up with the subject matter independently, or do you work with business users to work out if you're constructing a training pattern or you're constructing a training program? Do you have a panel that inputs into that, or is it driven by who drives that conversation?
I would throw the ball for this question to Kristiina, I think, because you had the couple of the experiences already. So I think you have kind of the more overall experience. I just have the few training sessions, a handful of them.
Excellent, nice segues.
I can try to answer. I have also seen these problems and challenges that Sami mentioned in terms of trainings. At the moment, how we are building kind of the level is that we have these panel group or these test kind of guinea pigs who actually take the training first and communicate back to us that is this a suitable level for the wider organization. At least that's one way. And then of course, don't even try to push all the information to everybody, because then you only need this basic level information for everybody, and then you select like these are our key users, or these are kind of the main teams who need a little bit more, and then focus on those and bring their own use cases. But also one thing I want to maybe bring up are kind of build the communities, because that's what I have learned. At least lately we have built these we just started to use Power BI, so we just built up a community around that. Just kind of bring together people virtually who are interested in the topic and facilitate the discussion a little bit. So it actually starts to float quite nicely, because the people from different parts of the organization have kind of the same interest in terms of use case or tool or whatever the common interest is. I think that's also a quite nice way to shift the culture a bit.
So you're creating champions of doing that, who then become technology ambassadors back into their own departmental silos or environments. And then they also then become, I guess the starting point to iteratively move forward from that training position. So
yes.
Yeah, I mean that sounds great, because I mean from my experience, when we're trying to introduce our software into a customer and we're trying to get that adoption process going and all of that kind of good stuff, it's you're always starting from a point of generally you start from a point of zero understanding, and you have to ramp up very quickly, right? So there's always a bit this temporal dimension to getting things done. But at the same time, you're trying to win the hearts and minds of the people that you're engaging with, and making sure that they are happy with their level in comparison to what you're trying to introduce them. And finding that balance is always an interesting exercise, to say the least. We have a couple of questions from the chat. I think we still have some time.
Yes, 4 minutes.
4 minutes. Okay, so I'm gonna run through some of these questions, and I'll put this out to the panel. The first one is to you, Kristiina, from Lucy Agatapai. I'm not gonna butcher your surname, Lucy. Sorry. To Kristiina, where the DNA trainings are made internally? Were the DNA trainings made internally, or did you partner with training vendors?
I have actually done both. In Fortum's case, we actually partnered. In Kemira's case, I actually built up the first trainings myself and with the organization. So you can do it both ways. This time we really wanted to focus on e-learnings and very kind of easy to take. And in Fortum's case, it was a little bit more face-to-face and maybe going a little bit deeper.
And what kind of e-learning strategy did you use? I mean, were you using, was it video-based? Was it course material and interactive? What kind of structure did that e-learning take?
In this case, we already have a lot of e-learnings, and it's usually kind of give little information and then some kind of test or kind of activity for the users. But these are really short and easy, just to get the ideas to the people's heads.
You're getting conceptual understanding.
Yes, really starting point.
Yeah, no, I understand. There's a question here for Nina. Nina, how do you and your team handle data quality issues, bias in the data, and at the end, trust stakeholder in AI recommendation?
Yes, I think there are like two levels of data quality issues that we see. Other are like the errors in the data, so coming occasionally, not always. For those, we are having some monitoring in place, so we would know it before it actually lands to the end users. Usually we take the recommendations off, since it's the worst to give like random recommendations that they cannot trust than no recommendations at all. And we have, of course, communicated these things and agreed that it's better this way. Then the other is that bias that you just don't have complete data. There is some percentage of things that you just don't get data from that process that you would need, or some problems with that. And it means that your recommendations are not 100% accurate. How we have dealt with this is that we do the modeling in the cooperations with the end users. So basically, communications is the key. For example, in the case where we are delivering some recommendations to our operations control center, so our data scientists are actually sitting there in the operations control center, the core of whole airline, where all the decisions are made, how the operations are running. So our data scientists are there, so they see the atmosphere, they see kind of what kind of problems people are having, and then vice versa, when those people are seeing that the data scientists are part of this, so there is a certain trust already, and then they can do the communications all the time when it occurs. And in the cases where we do know that there is some threshold of the error that we cannot just take care of, so then we agree with the stakeholder which one is better, to have no recommendation at all, or have the recommendation and then you need to check from another system for certain points, for example, that is this feasible or not. So it's always by the agreement. We try to develop our data science there where the value is actually coming out, so that they are very close to the end users.
Thanks a lot. I'm so sorry I have to interrupt you because time is over and it will be very difficult to arrange it. Yeah. Thank you so much for your engagement. Yeah. You can just switch off the camera. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
you.
Thanks a lot. So I would like to invite